Dangerous mid-air scare over the Orlando airport. A Cessna flying over a runway just as a Boeing 757 took off. The pilot of the smaller plane had to quickly veer out of the way. What happened just before this dangerously close call? The longest sentence yet for anyone charged in the January 6th Capitol attack, handed down to a former police officer and Marine veteran. And he's accused of assaulting police during the chaos. How many years he'll now spend behind bars? A courtroom showdown between federal prosecutors and former President Donald Trump's legal team. They're in a legal battle over Trump's request for a special master to review the documents seized during an FBI search of his Florida estate. What a judge is now saying. One more hurdle for new COVID boosters from Pfizer and Moderna. The shots are meant to target certain subvariants of the virus. How to make sure you get the updated vaccine. Caught in the crossfire, UN inspectors trying to reach a nuclear power plant in Ukraine run into fighting between Ukraine and Russia on their way there. Before The Hobbit and before Frodo's epic journey, there were the events that started it all. The new series, The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, begins thousands of years before the story you know. And one of its stars says to expect the unexpected.
This, story that we'd worked so hard on, we'd poured so much of ourselves into. And legitimately, as I watched it, I felt like there is nothing like this on TV now.
Good evening. I'm Phil Lipoff in for Lindsay Davis tonight. Thank you so much for streaming with us. We are tracking the next major development in the fallout from that unprecedented FBI search of former President Trump's Florida home. And also, we are standing by to hear from President Biden in a primetime speech where he will address what he sees as the direct threat to our democracy. But we begin tonight with the longest sentence yet handed down to a rioter involved in the January 6th siege on the Capitol. Former NYPD officer Thomas Webster is facing 10 years now in prison for assaulting a police officer that day. More than a year and a half after the Capitol riot, nearly 250 people have been sentenced for their roles in the insurrection. This comes as Julian Cater became the second man to plead guilty after being charged with assaulting Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick. Cater was seen in video deploying bear spray against officers that day. And in Texas today, a top lawyer for the Oath Keepers arrested and charged with conspiracy. Martha Raddatz leads us off.
He was a New York City police officer and former U.S. Marine. But tonight, Thomas Webster faces 10 years in prison for brutally assaulting a law enforcement officer on January 6th, the longest prison sentence to date for a January 6th defendant. Webster, caught on police body camera, wore a bulletproof vest and was armed with a metal flagpole flying the flag of the Marine Corps. Come on, shouting an expletive at the officer before pushing over the barricade and attempting to hit the officer with the flagpole. Webster later breaking through and tackling the officer to the ground as he violently tried to remove the officer's shield and mask. Prosecutors had sought 17.5 years for Webster, who at one time was on Mayor Bloomberg's security detail. The news comes as a second man charged in the attack on Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick pleaded guilty today. Video showed Julian Cater deploying bear spray at 3 officers on January 6th, including Sicknick. Sicknick's colleague, Officer Caroline Edwards, testifying before the House January 6th Select Committee earlier this summer.
I turned, and it was Officer Sicknick with his head in his hands, and he was ghostly pale.
Footage from January 6 showed Sicknick recoiling after being hit with the spray and pouring water in his eyes. He died the next day of natural causes. And tonight, more charges for the anti-government militia, the Oath Keepers, a newly unsealed indictment revealing one of its top lawyers has been charged with conspiracy in the January 6th riot. Kelly Sorrell had said she was cooperating with the U.S. government against the Oath Keepers, but a member of the militia group later implicated her in an alleged cover-up.
And Martha joins me now. Martha, you were on the Capitol grounds on January 6th, and I think many Americans, at least at the time, were surprised to see that military veterans and members of law enforcement were taking part in the attack that day. But this is just one of many cases that show it.
It certainly is, Phil. And in fact, it was shocking. It was especially shocking for me because I have covered the military for so many years, to see so many veterans there on Capitol Hill. And it was really quite apparent, wearing body armor and very well kitted up, as they would say in the military, but also those law enforcement officers as well. And this is just the beginning of some of these prosecutions, Phil.
All right, Martha Raddatz, thank you. Next to the showdown in a Florida court over the documents retrieved from Mar-a-Lago, lawyers for President Trump, former President Trump, have asked for a special master to decide which documents were privileged, and equating Trump having the documents at Mar-a-Lago to having overdue library books, their words. But the government says 322 classified documents were among them, including these seen in an FBI evidence photo, and they argue that appointing a special master will slow their investigation. ABC's Chief Justice correspondent Pierre Thomas reports from Florida tonight.
In an intense hearing in that Florida courtroom, former President Trump's attorneys comparing the hundreds of classified documents discovered at Mar-a-Lago to overdue library books. They were trying to convince federal judge Aileen Cannon to appoint a special master to comb through the material seized by DOJ and weed out any privileged information. But DOJ attorneys insist they've already done the work themselves, that their special filter teams have pulled 64 sets of documents seized on August 8th, some 520 pages, setting them aside as potentially privileged. Big picture, 322 classified documents have been removed from the president's home. Some of them in this remarkable image with clear markings, secret, top secret. Some of them discovered in desks in Trump's own office. DOJ lawyers today were blunt. Quote, because he was no longer the president, he did not have the right to take those documents. They aren't his. And prosecutors insist government records were likely concealed by the Trump team and efforts were likely taken to obstruct the investigation. Trump's lawyers today asking for a special master, citing, quote, a significant lack of trust between the parties, adding, we need to respectfully lower the temperature of both sides. We need to take a deep breath. This, although it's the former president who repeatedly attacked the FBI, even accusing them of planting evidence without any proof at all. Trump's lawyers leaving today without taking questions.
Are you confident the judge is going to rule in your favor?
Earlier today, Trump himself downplayed all those documents in all those boxes that managed to find their way from the White House to his Florida resort.
You accumulate a lot of stuff over a term, and then all of a sudden you're leaving, and stuff gets packed up and sent. All sorts of stuff. You know, mostly the boxes, pictures and newspapers and shirts and gear and, you know, golf balls, and just, it's a lot of stuff.
And Pierre joins us now from West Palm Beach. Pierre, the judge in this case has already indicated she is inclined to grant the former president's request for a special master. So what happens now?
Well, she has indicated she's leaning in favor of appointing a special master, but today she had tough questions for each side. She asked the Trump attorneys why it took 2 weeks to make the request, and she asked DOJ attorneys, wasn't there a way to put a special master in place without stopping the ongoing intelligence assessment? Not clear when she'll decide, Phil.
All right, Pierre, thank you. An ABC contributor and former federal prosecutor, Khan Nawadeh, is here to dig into this with us, as he does. Khan, thanks so much for being here to get into this. The judge indicated that she is seriously considering appointing a special master. Did that surprise you?
It does and it doesn't, because one, I don't think a special master is necessary in this kind of case. But it's not surprising given what this case is. It's the safer course for her to take. I think the real question is going to be, what is the scope of the special master's mandate? Is it going to be limited to just attorney-client privilege documents, or is it going to be broader, and will the special master be looking at executive privilege documents? And there, that's going to get really messy, because I don't think there's any executive privilege in this case.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about executive privilege. The president is claiming that, among other claims, that he declassified some stuff, that he has executive privilege. What does the law say on that?
As a former president, he does not have any privilege on this stuff, executive privilege, ultimately. That privilege is held by the incumbent. And secondly, executive privilege is about keeping things within the executive branch. So there's no precedent that says executive privilege applies to keeping parts of the executive branch from seeing documents. If this was a congressional thing, yes, then you can say executive privilege, Congress can't see this. but these are executive documents anyway.
So if the judge does wind up, as she says she's inclined to appoint a special master, what will the impact, the likely impact, be on the Justice Department's ongoing investigation?
Again, it depends on what the scope is. One, it definitely will delay things.
Either way, right?
Either
Whatever
way.
the scope is.
Exactly, because one, you're going to have to agree on who the special master is, and that's going to take time. Second, you're going to have to find a special master who they can get top secret clearance to, because not any person can be the special master. It has to be somebody who's able to get top secret clearance.
Yeah, the Justice Department was saying some of these documents couldn't even be viewed by some of the people who found them. The clearance was so high. Speaking of the investigation, the Justice Department's filing on Tuesday night that we've covered at length revealed that some of these documents were found on the former president's desk, mingled in with passports. Why is that important?
You can almost see that as a smoking gun statement and fact right there, because a defense that Trump can make, and he kind of made it in that statement, in that recording you just played, is, well, I didn't know. I had no idea about these documents. I'm not the one who handled them, right? So now they have evidence that, well, some of these documents were mixed in with very personal documents to the former president, his passport. So the inference is he must have known.
I want to turn just quickly, if you will, to a different legal matter while we have you relating to the Trump presidency. January 6th investigation. ABC News has learned that former Trump White House lawyers Pat Cipollone, Pat Philbin, both appear before a grand jury tomorrow. They're both under subpoena. We haven't heard much about the January 6th investigation into the attack on the Capitol for a bit now. What, if anything, does this tell us?
I think this tells us that DOJ is walking down the trail that the January 6th committee blazed for them, right? We saw that both these men had very significant things to testify about before the January 6th committee. So I expect that DOJ is going to be asking them those questions in part of their criminal investigation into January 6th.
And we'll see where it goes from there. We know you'll be back to help us out. ABC contributor, former federal prosecutor, Khan Nowadays, as always, thank you so much. Really do appreciate it. Now to politics, where President Biden is in the battleground state of Pennsylvania tonight, his second of 3 stops there just this week. And tonight he'll deliver an address outside Philadelphia's Independence Hall on what he is calling the, quote, continued battle for the soul of the nation. For more on that, we bring in ABC News political director Rick Klein. Rick, good to see you. The speech comes just before the traditional post-Labor Day kickoff to the midterm campaign season, but the White House says this is not a political speech. So how are they framing the argument he is going to be making tonight?
Well, it's very similar to the political rhetoric that he's been using for years now, dating back to the beginning of his campaign. That very phrase about the soul of the nation is how he launched his own campaign back in Pennsylvania back in 2019. What he's doing, though, with this speech is trying to tie together a whole bunch of different threads. We're going to hear references to the threats to democracy that were evident around January 6th and the aftermath, the attempt to overthrow the election. We're also going to hear from the president some lines about what he says Republicans would do, even though it's not going to be aimed specifically at Republicans by name necessarily. We're going to hear him say, among other things, quote, MAGA forces are determined to take this country backwards. That's among the things that the White House has released in advance. And what I think that's significant is that it's not just about the direct threats to democracy. The telling of Joe Biden, this is about things like abortion rights, the right to privacy, right even to contraception, some of the more extreme decisions that might be emanating from the Supreme Court in the future, as well as things that, that some elements of the Republican Party represent.
And this speech is coming, as you know, as the former president is still dominating the headlines over that search for classified documents at Mar-a-Lago we were just talking to Khan about. How do you expect President Biden to handle taking on former President Trump in these remarks?
Yeah, the White House says that he's not afraid to say the former president's name, and in fact, he's done so directly recently, though we don't know if he's going to get into those kind of details. And frankly, the people I've talked to, I think we'd be surprised overall if we heard a direct reference to the documents at Mar-a-Lago, because that is an active investigation from his Department of Justice. This wouldn't be the venue, most likely, for the current president to attack the former president. But the headlines of the last couple of weeks, the news that that former President Trump has been making, whether wittingly or unwittingly, is the context, is the backdrop for this speech. It's all part of the run-up to Labor Day, and the president, this White House, is very aware of that in framing this argument at this time.
So then speeches are really all about landing. How receptive do you think the American public is right now to this message about threats to our democracy? Think it's top of mind for many voters when so many people are thinking about inflation and other domestic issues?
Yeah, look, I mean, our reporters have been talking to voters across the country, and I think a lot more people talk about the immediate concerns that face them in this economy. And in fact, some of the easing inflation, the easing of gas prices are probably more responsible than anything else to the uptick in Democratic optimism around what's going to happen in the midterms. But the view of this White House is that they can frame this election as a choice rather than a referendum. A referendum on the current president, any incumbent president, almost always turns out poorly for the party in power. But making this a choice, saying, look, this is what we would do. These are what the other guys would do. This is what it would mean to go back to former President Trump and to others in the Republican Party that ascribe to his ideology. That's the way that the Democrats feel like they can turn this around. But of course, it isn't necessarily the top of mind issue. We haven't seen any polling that would suggest that people are thinking about this as a top tier issue at this time.
We've seen the president's approval numbers improving in recent weeks as he picked up some legislative wins. So do you think candidates in tough races will be embracing him and his message in the coming weeks?
It's mixed, to be honest. We've seen some candidates more willing, more likely to try to appear alongside the president than others. We've heard, for example, from the candidate for Senate in Pennsylvania, John Fetterman. He had an interesting response to the fact that President Biden's going to be in Pennsylvania again on Monday. He says he'll be there, but he's there to push him on some issues, including marijuana decriminalization. We've heard, we know that Sherry Beasley, the North Carolina Senate candidate, didn't want to appear with Kamala Harris when she was in the state today. We've also gotten kind of mixed word from Senator Raphael Warnock. Our reporter caught up with him, and he said, look, I'm running my own race. So it's not like this uptick is making Democrats go back to the fold and say, yes, I want to be with this guy. A lot would prefer that they could run their own races without national intervention. But you're not seeing the same fear of Biden and the Biden White House that you might have seen a few weeks or even months ago when the president's approval ratings were a lot lower than they are now.
Fascinating political season, to say the least, so far. ABC News political director Rick Klein, thanks so much.
Thank you, Phil.
So the CDC has greenlit the new updated COVID boosters from Pfizer and Moderna, offering protection against the newest variants. But how long until the shots can go into arms? And what about kids under 12? Here's ABC's Ariel Reshef.
A CDC panel tonight voting to recommend new Omicron-specific booster shots.
13 yeses and 1 no.
Those Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, redesigned to target the BA4 and BA5 subvariants, are expected to roll out as soon as this weekend.
We finally have updated vaccines that do a better job of matching to the circulating variant.
COVID is still killing more than 400 Americans a day, but just 1/2 of eligible people have gotten their first booster.
We're not going to eradicate COVID-19, but we have to do what we can to hedge our behavior against any potential infections, fall surge, and also long COVID.
The new booster for children under 12 years old won't come for at least another month or two. And as kids head back to school, an alarming snapshot of COVID's toll on students. National testing for 9-year-olds revealed scores for math down 7 points and 5 points for reading since the pandemic, the largest margin in more than 30 years. And the new data shows vulnerable students are falling furthest behind, with scores plunging 4 times lower than their top-performing classmates.
We need to make sure that we're paying attention to which kids have been hardest hit, kids in high-poverty schools, Black, Hispanic, Indigenous students, students that were lower achieving to begin with, and making sure those kids are receiving supports proportional to their need.
And Ariel joins us now. Turning back to those new boosters, Ariel, you're learning that we could see shots as soon as this weekend, but where will people be able to find them?
Right, Phil. After the sign-off from the CDC director, those shots could start rolling out as soon as this weekend at pharmacies, doctors' offices, and community health centers. Again, these are for anyone over the age of 12, at least 2 months after their last dose. Phil?
Ariel Reshef, thank you. Now to that scare over the Orlando airport, a Cessna that had just taken off, coming within a few hundred feet of a 757. Dangerously close call was caught on camera. Here's ABC's transportation correspondent, Gio Benitez.
Tonight, a close call captured on camera over Orlando International Airport. No. Watch, a single-engine Cessna flies over the airport just as a Delta 757 takes off within just hundreds of feet from the Cessna, according to its pilot, Malik Clark.
For an aircraft that is climbing at something like 30-something feet per second, that's pretty close.
The video, just obtained exclusively by ABC News but shot 2 weeks ago, captures Clark making a last-minute maneuver to avoid the jet.
I knew that this didn't look right. Immediately, I turned right and I climbed as steeply as I could, and they were headed straight toward us.
Clark had taken off from a nearby runway, air traffic control directing him to overfly where the Delta flight was taking off. Delta tonight telling ABC News that it is aware of these reports and is investigating. Nothing is more important than safety. Early flight data shows the planes were, at one point, about 0.3 of a mile apart horizontally and 500 feet apart vertically, and that the pilots of both planes saw each other.
The responsibility is still on the pilot to look outside, prevent something like this, a major collision.
And Gio joins us now. Gio, are we hearing anything from federal agencies just yet?
Well, Phil, tonight the FAA tells us it is investigating what led to that close call. But Phil, without a doubt here, it is clear this should not have happened. Phil.
Indeed. Gio, thank you. Now to the extreme heat wave in the West, set to last right through Labor Day. 48 million Americans in 8 states under alerts, a state of emergency in California. ABC's senior meteorologist Rob Marciano with us tonight. Rob, this is a prolonged and extreme heat wave, even by West Coast standards.
It is, and now we're in September, Phil. You know, a heat wave is typically defined of at least 3 days of heat. We're talking about at least a week for some of these areas, and a lot of these cities are coming off their hottest August on record. Matter of fact, let's show you some of that now that we're into September. More than 20 cities had their hottest August on record. Most of them are in the West and big cities at that. Boise, Portland, Seattle, Sacramento, Salt Lake City, and some places like San Antonio saw their hottest summers on record. Burbank specifically hit an all-time record high yesterday of 112. Tomorrow's number is not going to be any better. Heat warnings up for California and southern Nevada, and advisories all the way up into eastern Washington. And the next 3 days don't look any better. And matter of fact, Sunday and Monday could very well be the worst of it as far as the heat and the fire threat is concerned for California. All right, it's been since July 3rd since we had a tropical storm in the Atlantic. That's the quietest hurricane season streak since 1941. It's over. Tropical storm Daniel, there it is, or Danielle, expected to continue off into the Atlantic. No threat to land, but we have a couple other disturbances out there. They're not a threat at the moment, Phil, but as you know, we're heading now into the peak of hurricane season. Phil?
We are indeed. Rob Marciano, thanks so much. When we come back, the Southern California firefighters battling extreme temperatures and a raging wildfire, some of them injured in the process. Are you a Lord of the Rings fan? If so, you definitely know about the hotly anticipated new show dropping today. We have a conversation with one of its stars. Up next, the alarming news as UN inspectors reach that nuclear plant caught in the crossfire. How bad is the risk to Ukraine, to Europe, and to the world? We're going to take a closer look.
This is ABC News Live.
The crush of families here in Poland.
At refugee centers.
In Putin's Russia.
On the ground in Ukraine.
Close to the front line.
Here at the White House.
Destructive Cat 4 storm.
You're along I-5.
Boston is in the bullseye.
Let's go. We made it.
ABC News Live, America's #1 streaming news. Anytime, anywhere. Streaming 24/7, straight to you for free.
Thank you for making ABC News Live America's #1 streaming news.
Bring them on. If only there was a place in the morning to start my day. With a smile, somewhere to help me get in the know. A place as spectacular as, well, me.
I think we might know a place, right, guys?
Bring your friends. Oh, wait, there is.
Good morning, America.
GMA, 7A, every day. Boom, boom, boom.
Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Robin. Good morning, America. How are you?
Boom. Now that's how you start your day, people.
All right, here we go. You ready? Let's do it.
Yes, it's the show America wants and America needs right now.
This is What Would You Do? Let's go. How are you?
How cute.
Yes.
So what will you be watching Saturdays on ABC News Live?
What would you do?
Hey, I guess I just found out.
The What Would You Do Marathon, 12 to 6 Eastern, every Saturday on ABC News Live.
My favorite show.
As of today, in a big way, we have inaugurated abcnews.com.
A lot has changed in our world since Peter made that announcement. But what hasn't changed is the commitment to groundbreaking reporting and innovation at abcnews.com. And here's to everything ahead.
This is ABC News Live Prime.
Thanks so much for streaming with us.
Live reporting, breaking news, exclusives, award-winning, powerful, eye-opening. ABC News Live Prime with Lindsay Davis. Streaming weeknights. Right now, with so much at stake, Sunday mornings, this is the place. Taking on the tough questions with straightforward reporting. Thank you for making ABC's This Week with George the #1 Sunday morning news show versus the competition.
Welcome to This Week.
With so much at stake, so much on the line, more Americans turn here than any other newscast. ABC News World News Tonight with David Muir, America's #1 most watched newscast across all of television.
It was an extraordinary story.
A computer salesman was supposed to report to prison to begin a 17-year sentence.
They let him turn himself into jail with no escort.
No one thought he would run.
How do you evade capture for 25 years? How do you do that?
Now, join the search, following the U.S. Marshals as they uncover new leads in a global manhunt. Can you help catch this fugitive?
Have you seen this man?
Have you seen this man?
Have you seen this man? Listen and join the all-new hunt wherever you get your podcast.
Welcome back. At least 7 firefighters were injured while battling a raging wildfire in Southern California. Authorities say they suffered heat-related injuries. Colleagues are still trying to contain the Los Angeles County fire that in one point shut down part of a major interstate. Today, UN nuclear inspectors got their first look inside the Ukrainian nuclear plant that has been caught in the crossfire. ABC's Tom Sufi-Burridge is there with the latest.
Tonight, UN inspectors finally getting inside Europe's largest nuclear power plant in Ukraine, on the front line of the war. Driving past gunfire and mortars to reach the plant, so they can assess how safe it is.
I have just completed a first tour of the key areas.
Shelling in the town next to the plant intensifying, just as those inspectors arrived. One of the plant's reactors temporarily shut down today because of the surge in fighting.
President
Zelensky tonight accusing Russia of trying to sabotage the mission, claiming Russia is trying to turn it into a fruitless tour of the plant, and criticizing the UN watchdog for not calling for demilitarization. Zelensky stressing the UN officials must draw objective conclusions. Video broadcast on Russian TV documenting the presence of Russian military vehicles as the UN officials inspect the plant. 5 of the inspectors staying on, but tonight most of the delegation leaving, flanked by armed guards.
We are not going anywhere. The IAEA is now there, is at the plant, and is not moving. It's going to stay there.
Well, in Ukraine, a sense of relief that tonight independent experts are finally inside that plant. The inspectors are due to work there over the next few days. Phil?
All right, Tom, thank you. And for more insight on the IAEA investigators' task and the risks involved at that plant, I'm joined now by Anthony Ruggiero. He's a senior director of the Non-Proliferation and Biodefense Program at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Anthony, thanks so much for spending time with us tonight. When inspectors arrive at that plant today, structurally, what were they looking for?
Well, thanks for having me. You know, I think they're looking first to relieve some of the pressure on the staff. You know, it's stressful enough running a nuclear power plant. It's even more stressful when Russian soldiers are intimidating and torturing and thinking everyone's a Ukrainian spy, and you have military activity in the area. So that's the first off. I think they're also looking at making sure that the emergency backup generators, you know, we heard last week that the reactors came off of the power lines, the power grid. Those generators are the things that would save some of those safety systems and have them kick in to make sure there's no accident. They're probably looking at making sure that the facility is structurally, you know, integrity of the structure is there. But I think it's good news that they got there despite the shelling and the Russians clearly trying to divert the mission. But, you know, it's good that they're there. It's good that there are a couple that are staying there until Saturday.
So you mentioned the staff. We heard in Tom's report just now that they spent some time talking with workers there. Why do you think that's important?
Well, the press reports coming out of the reactor is very troubling. The staff, as I noted, it's a stressful job already. The Russian soldiers are taking away their phones. They're very suspicious of people that are there, thinking that they're Ukrainian spies. There's rumors that several have been killed. Some have been tortured. These are the staff that are standing between us and a nuclear disaster, a humanitarian and ecological disaster. And the last thing that they need is to be intimidated by Russian forces. This is not normal. This is not normal of what happens. And this is the kind of scenarios where you can easily see an accident happening at the nuclear plant.
Secretary of State Anthony Blinken has accused Russia of using this plant as a, quote, nuclear shield. Beyond this war, what concerns do you have about the precedent that this all sets?
Right, and Secretary Blinken is correct. The concern I have is what are our other adversaries and other American adversaries looking at and seeing? The Russians are essentially, stationed at the plant. They're firing from the plant. They claim they're not, but they are. They're firing from the plant, and they know that the Ukrainians cannot fire on the plant. And so in another military conflict or scenario, how many of our adversaries or our allies' adversaries will see this, not just nuclear plants, chemical plants, other types of plants where you don't want this type of activity to be ongoing? That's my main concern, and I think it's good news that the IAEA is there. Hopefully we'll get some kind of demilitarized zone around this reactor so we can start to decrease the pressure on it.
Anthony Ruggiero, Senior Director at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. We appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you.
It's still ahead here on Prime, the shocking accident that led to the death of a baggage handler. Crafting beauty without the ability to even see it. How a man who lost his sight is building wooden creations and inspiring millions. And the dramatic setback in schools caused by the pandemic. We take a look now by the numbers. But first, our tweet of the day, icon Dionne Warwick responding to the announcers who confused her with Gladys Knight during the Serena Williams match last night.
All right, here we go. You ready? Let's do it.
Yes, it's the show America wants and America needs right now.
This is What Would You Do? Let's go. How are you? Yes.
So what will you be watching Saturdays on ABC News Live?
What would you do?
Hey, I guess I just found out.
The What Would You Do Marathon, 12 to 6 Eastern, every Saturday on ABC News Live.
My favorite show.
This is ABC News Live.
The crush of families here in Poland.
At refugee centers.
In Putin's Russia.
On the ground in Ukraine.
Close to the front line.
Here at the White House.
Destructive Cat 4 storm.
You're along I-5.
Boston is in the bullseye.
Let's go. We made it.
ABC News Live, America's #1 streaming news. Anytime, anywhere. Streaming 24/7, straight to you for free.
Thank you for making ABC News Live America's #1 streaming news.
America is being poisoned with fentanyl, and we don't even know it. Just heard my wife screaming. She told me they had just died.
50 to 100 times more potent than morphine.
Keep breathing, come on. It's poison, it's pure poison.
A few grains of salt worth of fentanyl will kill you.
Just my agency has seized enough to kill the entire country.
ABC News Live presents Poisoned, America's Fentanyl Crisis. The powerful series, streaming free on ABC News Live.
Bring them on.
If only there was a place in the morning to start my day. With a smile, somewhere to help me get in the know. A place as spectacular as, well, me.
I think we might know a place, right, guys?
Bring your friends.
Oh, wait, there is.
Good morning, America.
GMA, 7A, every day. Boom, boom, boom.
Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Robin. Good morning, America. How are you?
Boom. Now That's how you start your day, people.
Take America's #1 news with you anywhere you go, anytime, free. Download the ABC News app now. Breaking news, exclusives, 24/7. There for you with one touch. The ABC News app. Download it now.
As of today, in a big way, we have inaugurated abcnews.com.
A lot has changed in our world since Peter made that announcement. But what hasn't changed is the commitment to groundbreaking reporting and innovation at abcnews.com. And here's to everything ahead.
Welcome back. American school children fell further behind than ever during the pandemic shutdown, according to national test scores released today. So we're going to take a look at the devastating results by the numbers. 9-year-olds dropped an average of 5 points in reading, 7 points in math compared to the same age group just 2 years ago. It's the largest decline in reading in more than 30 years and the first ever drop in math. The decline spanned all races and income levels, but while top performers in the 90th percentile dropped just 3 points in math, the bottom 10th percentile lost 12 points in math. Black students slid 13 points in math compared to a 5-point drop for white students. Experts say there is a connection between time spent remote learning and lost learning. 9 weeks, that's how much longer many urban schools, often serving lower income and minority students, stayed remote compared to others. That's according to one study on the issue. Education experts say 1 point on the exam translates to about 3 weeks of learning. So for some, that's 9 months of additional learning time to catch up on. National test scores had remained level for the past decade or so, while gaps had begun to widen between low and high performing students. But the pandemic and remote learning tore that gap wide open. Educators say closing it will be a monumental task. And we still have a ton to get to here on Prime. An Olympian speaks candidly about her dreams of becoming a mother, the procedure she's encouraging more people to consider. Plus, Twitter could be adding a highly requested feature to your feed. But first, a look at our top trending stories on abcnews.com.
So much at stake in our world right now. We wanted to thank you for your trust and for making ABC News America's #1 news.
And thank you for making ABC News Live America's #1 streaming news.
Now streaming on ABC News Live 2020. True crime, cinematic, real-life drama, stunning, the unthinkable. Follow the clues, The Hunt. True crime 2020. Now streaming on ABC News Live.
National parks are incredibly safe places, but crime will happen.
Hey, my wife has fallen. She's in really critical condition.
At that time, I thought it was just a tragic accident.
There's still a lot of questions we need to ask.
There were small things that didn't totally add up.
This is 2 lives for Harold that have died now. I was shocked. Something's not right.
Admit it. These days, what you need to know
seems to change just about every day.
What is it that you really want to know, need to know?
To help you not just get through your day,
but to make the most of it. Feel smarter.
Feel better.
Feel happier.
Well, how about a third hour of Good Morning America?
GMA 3, what you need to know. Now streaming on ABC News Live.
It's all about you.
I know what happened, and I'm not guilty.
Why the fascination with criminal trials? Figure out what's really out there.
She revealed she had murdered his family.
I know in my heart that he did this.
It's the time of suspicion.
The ending's really tough.
You don't know whether truth is going to be difficult to find unless you try to find it.
America's #1 news, ABC News. Most watched, most trusted, and streaming live to you anytime, anywhere, and free. This is ABC News Live, America's #1 streaming news. Free to you 24/7. Watch America's #1 news whenever you want it, wherever you are, anytime. ABC News Live, streaming live and free on all platforms.
The
Justice Department and lawyers for former President Donald Trump facing off in court for the first time in a high-stakes hearing over whether to appoint a special master to review the documents seized from Trump's Mar-a-Lago home and determine if there are any executive or attorney-client privilege concerns. The dueling court filings over the past few days, a likely roadmap to the arguments the judge will hear today. Overnight, Trump's legal team doubling down on their demands for a special master, but that filing made no mention of Trump's repeated claims that he had declassified the records. The DOJ releasing this photo showing documents marked secret, top secret, and SCI found at the Trump residence. One of Trump's attorneys attacking the release of the photo from the DOJ in an interview on Fox News, but also admitting the highly classified documents were in an area where Trump had frequent visitors.
Anybody that knows President Trump's office, he has guests frequently there.
And according to the Department of Justice, Trump should have never had those documents. They shouldn't have been unsecured. And now they argue that a special master could further disrupt ongoing investigations and the damage assessment that is currently underway into whether America's national security has been compromised.
Two more members of the Trump administration are expected to appear tomorrow in front of a grand jury investigating the January 6th siege on the U.S. Capitol. Former White House counsel Pat Cipollone and his former deputy Pat Philbin are key witnesses during the then President Trump's final days in office. The move to subpoena the two men has signaled an even more dramatic escalation in the Justice Department's investigation into the attack. Their testimony comes as new information surfaces surrounding Ginny Thomas. Now, she is the wife of U.S. Supreme Court Judge Clarence Thomas. And according to the Associated Press, Mrs. Thomas emailed two state lawmakers in Wisconsin and asked both to overturn President Biden's win in the state.
A baggage handler is dead after an accident at the New Orleans airport. Officials say 26-year-old Germani Thompson's hair got tangled in the belt loader while she was offloading a flight. An autopsy will determine the exact cause of death.
Another recall alert to tell you about. Ford is recalling 200,000 vehicles. This one involves Ford Expeditions and Lincoln Navigators from 2015 to 2017. The company says cooling fans can fail and catch fire in the glove box. So far, 25 fires have been reported. The company plans to fix the issue for free. Until then, owners are being urged to park outside.
And if you were like most of us, you have tweeted out something and then realized it has a typo or a missing word and you just want to change it. Well, Twitter may now have a solution. The social media giant has announced it is testing an edit button. It would give people a half an hour to change their message. Readers will also be able to see the prior version of it. Twitter Blue subscribers could have access to the edit button within the next few weeks. No word yet on when the rest of us will get it.
NASA has taken another giant step forward for mankind. The Perseverance rover mission has created oxygen on the red planet. It was done as part of its Mars Oxygen In Situ Resource Utilization Experiment, also known as MOXIE. MOXIE was able to produce 6 grams of oxygen per hour during 7 experimental runs. Need a little more than that to breathe, but it's a start. This is the same amount of oxygen generated by a modest tree on Earth.
Now to Olympian Lolo Jones speaking candidly about her fertility journey. At 40 years old, Jones is now taking steps she hopes will allow her to have children one day. ABC's Juju Chang spoke with her in an exclusive interview.
Being a good mom is very difficult, especially in today's society. And so it has me nervous. Like, do I have the capabilities, the skill set to care for someone, you know? But I'd like a chance.
Olympic hurdler and bobsledder Lolo Jones, one of an elite group to compete in both the Winter and Summer Games. No stranger to overcoming obstacles.
Lolo Jones has the lead.
Now at 40, Lolo is facing a completely different hurdle.
You want to be a mom? I want to be a mom, yeah.
The athlete speaking to us exclusively about her fertility journey after years searching for the one. Lolo deciding to freeze her eggs.
You keep having hope that you're going to meet someone. And then every year that goes by, you're like, oh, I'm not like meeting my husband. Like, you start to get more anxious. And then here's the crazy thing about all this. I've been crashing a bobsled at 90 miles an hour. I've had hamstring injury, spine surgery, and nothing was more terrifying than starting to even look up the process of egg freezing.
Lolo sharing her emotional journey on Instagram.
There's a lot of stress on me right now.
Injecting herself with hormones for 11 days in a row before surgery to extract the eggs.
I was like, what dose? Like, I'd forgotten my dosage, and so...
It's like a chemistry class.
Yeah, I learned, like I said, I was not meant to be a doctor. And then...
You're born with a certain number of eggs, going through that bank as you get older. Egg freezing is an opportunity to halt that process and bide time to build a family.
People undertake this treatment if they're trying to get the ticking time clock out of their head, trying to take the stress off of their dating decisions, and be able to really feel like they might have an insurance policy in the freezer.
Lolo's doctors retrieving 27 eggs during the procedure. 17 are mature and viable candidates for fertilization down the road.
With numbers like that, she has much higher statistical power of having a success with that group of eggs.
But the egg freezing process is never a sure thing.
This is the thing about egg freezing that people should know. It is not a guarantee to have a kid.
In theory, those eggs can be kept frozen without losing quality for thousands of years, giving Lolo more time to find her match. But dating, she says, hasn't been easy.
Trust me, I've been on some amazing dates. It has not worked out. But if the right person is for me, they will be willing to stick through it all. I want a guy who's gonna love me through it all.
You've been very public about maintaining your virginity.
Yes.
Is that...
People hate that.
But ultimately, no regrets.
What do you mean, no regrets? Are you kidding me? Like, I'm sitting here and I have nobody. No, there's times for sure where it's really hard. I'm a strong Christian, and that's the gift I want to give to my husband.
It's one thing to do this privately. What made you want to share it?
So, I know. Why did I decide to share this? Because I wish someone had shared this with me years ago. I'm on the brink of waiting too late.
Our thanks to Juju Chang for that. We want to turn to our weekly segment, TikTok, where we take a closer look at the story behind the sensation. Tonight, we bring you the story of triumph. Our next guest is a prime example of how you can find the beauty in life after hardships and tribulations. John Furness is best known as the blind woodsman on the app, creates stunning wood pieces in his wood shop, and educates his audience at the same time on how he navigates the world without sight. Let's take a look. John, thanks so much for taking the time to join us. We do appreciate it. It's an incredible story of perseverance, really inspirational. Talk to us a little bit about, we'll go back to the beginning of the journey. At 16 years old when you lost both your sight and your sense of smell.
Well, back then, it was a pretty tough time. I became blind because I attempted suicide. Honestly, I've adapted to being blind so well, and it's changed my life for the better in so many ways that I truly feel that I'm supposed to be blind to be who I'm supposed to be.
Well, and now affecting lives on TikTok. When did you know that you wanted to dedicate your life to doing this? And I'm curious, did you want to before you became visually impaired as well?
After I became blind, it really kind of, I think I started to realize that I had something that I could offer. And it took quite a while, but it wasn't up until about, let's see here, about 8 years ago or so that I really started to try and use my message to help other people, starting to speak at middle schools and high schools. Then the pandemic happened, and that's kind of what brought us to TikTok.
Why was it so important for you to use a platform like TikTok to talk about really difficult topics?
Well, one of the reasons that we went on to TikTok in particular was right about the time that the pandemic happened. I had been doing, like I said, I've been doing a lot of talks at high schools and middle schools. And of course, all of that went away. So we wanted to try and still reach them somehow or other. And we knew that TikTok was really popular with that age group.
John, woodworking is tough enough and dangerous enough for people who can see. You lost your sight and are doing this now. How have you navigated your way around and through that?
Well, the biggest part about being safe in the wood shop is following the safety rules. Whether you can see or not, you follow those rules and you'll be okay. And the biggest difference between sighted and blind woodworkers is the way that we measure things. And I hope you can see it here. This is what's called a rotomatic. It's an adaptive tool for measuring. So every tab is 1/2 of an inch, and every turn of this nut is 1/16 of an inch. And I'm able to measure more accurately with this than I ever could with a tape measure when I could see.
John, I'm curious before we go. You talk about abuse, suicide prevention. I'm curious. Anybody who knows your story and who watches you, I mean, if your story can stop one person, from taking their life, that's incredible, and it could help so many people. What would you say to somebody who was in a dark place, in despair right now?
I would say to them that all things change. That even though it might be as dark as it can be right now, eventually things will change. You can go down the road a little bit further and find yourself a spot to turn off, or find the thing that'll help you do what you feel is right. And just remember that there's such a wide world of people and things out there that can help, and to not be afraid to reach out, to not be afraid to say, I need a little bit of companionship.
Well, the words are true, and your story is inspirational. We thank you for sharing it with us tonight. Before we go, we do just want to wish you an early happy birthday. Someone told me it was coming up. So happy birthday. Hope it's a great one. And you can visit John's online store for custom crafts at www.furnacestudios.com.
Thank you very much, Phil. It's been an honor to be on your show.
If you or someone you know is struggling, you can call or text the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 988. So you're about to see Middle-earth like you've never seen it before. Amazon Prime's Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power is one of the most highly anticipated shows of the year and is set to hit a record price tag, $1 billion. Lindsay Davis sat down with one of the show's stars just ahead of the premiere tomorrow.
Most expensive TV show ever made. Just so curious, I mean, this is obviously just an iconic franchise. Were you already a Lord of the Rings fan?
Yeah, I mean, I was a fan of the films. I mean, those films are classics.
You cannot pass! Get out!
And I think what's really great about having the films, in addition to our adaptation, in addition to many adaptations, is they all get to coexist.
What else is out there? There's wonders in this world, beyond our wandering. I can feel it.
And so I think what's great is, when you think about it, it doesn't feel like those films were, over 20 years ago? It's been a while, so it's an interesting time to sort of revisit Tolkien's work and revisit this world, because I think there's a lot of stuff that sort of a contemporary audience can draw from it and really apply to today.
And so tell us about this world, because it's actually thousands of years before the original setting of Lord of the Rings. So what can the audience expect from this?
Most people are familiar with the Third Age in Tolkien's work, so that's what people are familiar with in the movies. And this is the Second Age. And within the Second Age, there's quite a bit that happens, thousands of years to sort of, draw material from. And, our adaptation really creatively, I think, takes some of the best bits.
So tell us about your character and the role that you play.
So I play the character of Queen Regent Miriel.
Everyone must decide who we shall be.
And she is the leader of the island kingdom of Numenor. And I think what's really great for fans of Tolkien is that this island of Numenor is one that is referenced by Tolkien in his lore, but it's the first time that it's been seen on screen.
And when we talk about just the hair and the makeup and the costumes and the set, and it's all just so stunning and elaborate, how do you go about preparing yourself for a role that is in such a fantastical world?
I think for me, my main goal has been to not get too caught up in the idea of its largeness and its epic nature, and really think about it from the most sort of human point of view. Because, you know, as I like to say, even though I'm playing a queen or a queen regent, you know, a queen is still a person. And so really it's sort of how do you capture, you know, the essence of that person.
We stay true to each other with our hearts even bigger in our feet.
And much more diverse and inclusive, I would imagine, with the cast. You primarily being there front and center as a queen.
I'm also somebody that enjoys genre and wants to see not only more of the world as I know it to be, as I experience it, but the world that I aspire to be part of. And I just think that it would be a lost opportunity to not be as inclusive as possible in a story that has such a reach, a story that means a lot to people, that people navigate a lot of thoughts and feelings and ideas through. And you know, for people that already know it, I think they're going to be excited. I think they've been hungry to see more representation. And for people who are new to it, I think it's a great point of access just to see people that look like you in these stories. So I'm really excited, and to me, it just feels like the most natural thing in the world just to see a global take on this story.
So many people have anticipated this release, 240 countries, 32 different languages. For people who were die-hard for the original storyline when we saw it 20 years ago, what can they expect now from this series?
I think when you're telling a story in a serialized way, you have a little bit more time. You have a little bit of, you know, a little bit more runway, if you will. And so I think you can, I would say, expect the unexpected. But I also think what's great is there are things that are familiar.
It is here, Galadriel, the moment we feared.
It's easy and is only natural to make a lot of comparisons in terms of, you know, what we've done with The Rings of Power as an adaptation and other, not only the movies that came before us, but other genre shows. This is an incredible time if you're a genre fan, because to me, it's really about the abundance of this material, as opposed to feeling like you're just seeing a repeat or a rehash of the same story. And we finally, as a cast, you know, we had the first 3 episodes screened for us as a group, and we got to see it. This, you know, story that we'd worked so hard on, we'd poured so much of ourselves into. And legitimately, as I watched it, I felt like there is nothing like this on TV now.
You have fought long enough, Galadriel. Put up your sword.
It's not comparable to anything else that's on TV or movie-wise, and that's exciting.
Without it, what am I to be?
Our thanks to Lindsay Davis for that. Before we go tonight, the image of the day. It's about to be pumpkin season, or squirrel pumpkin season, at least according to this exhibition in Germany. That's our show for this hour. Stay with ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. I'm Phil Lipoff. Thanks so much for streaming with us. And coming up in the next hour, we are heading to Philadelphia, where President Biden is expected to deliver his primetime address on the threats, he says, to democracy. That's happening at any moment.
America's #1 news, ABC News. Most watched, most trusted, and streaming live to you anytime, anywhere, and free. This is ABC News Live, America's #1 streaming news. Free to you 24/7. Watch America's #1 news whenever you want it, wherever you are, anytime. ABC News Live, streaming live and free on all platforms. Take America's #1 news with you, anywhere you go, anytime, free. Download the ABC News app now. Breaking news, exclusives, 24/7. There for you with one touch. The ABC News app. Download it now.
With so much at stake in our world right now, we wanted to thank you for your trust and for making ABC News America's #1 news.
And thank you for making ABC News Live America's #1 streaming news.
He thought he was God.
He's now one of the most vilified men in the world. He is the everyman. Zelensky is the Tom Hanks of Ukraine.
The fact that a little nice Jewish boy is 5'7" is showing up this KGB agent in the Kremlin.
What do you say to Americans who see Russia and you not only as a rival, but an unfriendly adversary?
Two men at war.
Which Vladimir will take over. The world is not going to be the same.
Amber Rose Isaac was the love of my life.
She went into the hospital.
And then I just see Shamani
She was as good as dead as soon as she walked into that hospital.
Black women are 4 times more likely to die than their white counterparts with the same symptoms.
I can't let Amber be another statistic. We need to make sure that this doesn't happen to anyone else.
This fight is not over.
We're doing this together, man.
I'm Phil Lipoff in for Lindsay Davis tonight. Thanks so much for streaming with us. We are monitoring several developments here at ABC News at this hour. The governor of Mississippi says 600 National Guard members will help run 7 water distribution sites in that state's capital. About 160,000 people were left without safe and reliable running water after storms damaged the city's water plants. Jackson's mayor hopes water services can be restored fully before the weekend. A plaque dedicated to the Ku Klux Klan at the West Point Military Academy has come under fire. A congressional panel dedicated to identifying and advising on the removal and renaming of Confederate-affiliated statues or buildings under the Department of Defense wants it gone. The bronze-mounted marker bearing the words Ku Klux Klan below a hooded figure appearing at the entrance of a building on campus. But it falls outside the scope of the group, since the KKK is not directly tied to the Confederacy. The panel says clearly there are links and that the DoD should remove it and memorials like it. Tropical storm Danielle formed in the Atlantic today and is expected to become the first hurricane of an unusually quiet storm season so far, according to the National Hurricane Center. Thankfully, the storm is not currently a threat to land. But we begin this hour with a live look now from Independence Hall in Philadelphia, where President Biden is set to take the stage for a rare primetime address about what the president calls threats to our democracy. The speech is not being billed as a political event by the White House, but the president is expected to warn of threats from, quote, Maga Republicans. Let's bring in senior White House correspondent Mary Bruce, who's traveling with the president tonight. Mary, this is expected to get underway at any moment now. What should we expect to hear?
Well, the president, Phil, is going to argue that this election is about a moral choice, really an existential choice between Democrats and Republicans linked to Donald Trump and what he describes as his extreme ideology. Biden will cast this as a battle for the soul of this nation, as he has said time and time again. It's a theme carried over from his campaign, and he will warn that America's values are under assault from extremists, the ultra MAGA, as he called them, who he says remain beholden to Donald Trump, and he will warn that they are trying to take our country backwards. Here comes the president.
Of the United States and Dr. Jill Biden.
You see the president and his wife, Dr. Jill Biden, coming up there to the microphones. You know, the president during the campaign has called this a battle for the soul of the nation. We are expected to hear more of that tonight. We spoke to ABC political director Rick Klein earlier on, who had seen some of the speech and gave us one line that we talked about he's going to talk about MAGA Republicans. We don't know if he's going to name the former president by name or even take on the events that have happened at Mar-a-Lago. But here is the president of the United States.
My fellow Americans, please, if you have a seat, take it. I speak to you tonight from sacred ground in America, Independence Hall in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. This is where America made its Declaration of Independence to the world more than 2 centuries ago with an idea unique among nations, that in America, we're all created equal. This is where the United States Constitution was written and debated. This is where we set in motion the most extraordinary experiment of self-government the world has ever known. With 3 simple words: we the people. We the people. These 2 documents and the ideas they embody, equality and democracy, are the rock upon which this nation is built. They're how we became the greatest nation on earth. They're why, for more than 2 centuries, America has been a beacon to the world. But as I stand here tonight, equality and democracy are under assault. We do ourselves no favor to pretend otherwise. So tonight, I've come to this place where it all began to speak as plainly as I can to the nation about the threats we face, about the power we have in our own hands to meet these threats, and about the incredible future that lies in front of us if only we choose it. We must never forget, we the people are the true heirs of the American experiment that began more than 2 centuries ago. We the people have burning inside of each of us the flame of liberty that was lit here at Independence Hall. A flame that lit our way through abolition, the Civil War, suffrage, the Great Depression, world wars, civil rights. That sacred flame still burns. Now in our time, as we build an America that is more prosperous, free, and just. That is the work of my presidency, a mission I believe in with my whole soul. But first, we must be honest with each other and with ourselves. Too much of what's happening in our country today is not normal. Donald Trump and the Maga Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic. Now, I want to be very clear up front. Not every Republican, not even the majority of Republicans are MAGA Republicans. Not every Republican embraces their extreme ideology. I know, because I've been able to work with these mainstream Republicans. But there's no question that the Republican Party today is dominated, driven, and intimidated by Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans. And that is a threat to this country. These are hard things. But I'm an American president, not a president of red America, blue America, but of all America. And I believe it's my duty to level with you, to tell the truth, no matter how difficult, no matter how painful. And here, in my view, is what is true. MAGA Republicans do not respect the Constitution. They do not believe in the rule of law. They do not recognize the will of the people. They refuse to accept the results of a free election. And they're working right now, as I speak, in state after state, to give power to decide elections in America to partisans and cronies, empowering election deniers to undermine democracy itself. MAGA forces are determined to take this country backwards to an America where there is no right to choose, no right to privacy, no right to contraception, no right to marry who you love. They promote authoritarian leaders and they fan the flames of political violence that are a threat to our personal rights, to the pursuit of justice, to the rule of law, to the very soul of this country. They look at the mob that stormed the United States Capitol on January 6th, brutally attacking law enforcement, not as insurrectionists who placed a dagger at the throat of our democracy, but they look at them as patriots. And they see their MAGA failure to stop a peaceful transfer of power after the 2020 election as preparation for the 2022 and 2024 elections. They tried everything last time to nullify the votes of 81 million people. This time, they're determined to succeed in thwarting the will of the people. That's why respected conservatives like Federal Circuit Court Judge Michael Ludwig has called Trump and the extreme MAGA Republicans, quote, a clear and present danger to our democracy. But while the threat to American democracy is real, I want to say as clearly as we can, we are not powerless in the face of these threats. We are not bystanders in this ongoing attack on democracy. There are far more Americans from every background and belief who reject the extreme MAGA ideology than those that accept it. And folks, it is within our power, it's in our hands, yours and mine, to stop the assault on American democracy. I believe America is at an inflection point, one of those moments that determine the shape of everything that's to come after. And now, America must choose to move forward or to move backwards, to build a future or obsess about the past, to be a nation of hope and unity and optimism, or a nation of fear, division, and of darkness. MAGA Republicans have made their choice. They embrace anger. They thrive on chaos. They live not in the light of truth, but in the shadow of lies. But together we can choose a different path. We can choose a better path forward to the future. A future of possibility, a future to build and dream and hope. And we're on that path moving ahead. I know this nation. I know you, the American people. I know your courage. I know your hearts. And I know our history. This is a nation that honors our Constitution. We do not reject it. This is a nation that believes in the rule of law. We do not repudiate it. This is a nation that respects free and fair elections. We honor the will of the people. We do not deny it. And this is a nation that rejects violence as a political tool. We do not encourage violence. We are still an America that believes in honesty and decency and respect for others. Patriotism, liberty, justice for all, hope, possibilities. We are still, at our core, a democracy. And yet, history tells us that blind loyalty to a single leader and a willingness to engage in political violence is fatal to democracy. For a long time, we've told ourselves that American democracy is guaranteed, but it's not. We have to defend it, protect it, stand up for it, each and every one of us. That's why tonight, I'm asking our nation to come together, unite behind the single purpose of defending our democracy regardless of your ideology. We're all called by duty and conscience to confront extremists who put their own pursuit of power above all else. Democrats, independents, mainstream Republicans, we must be stronger, more determined, and more committed to saving American democracy than Maga Republicans are to destroying American democracy. We, the people, will not let anyone or anything tear us apart. Today, there are dangers around us we cannot allow to prevail. We here, you've heard it, more and more talk about violence as an acceptable political tool in this country. It's not. It can never be an acceptable tool. So I want to say this plain and simple. There is no place for political violence in America, period. None, ever. We saw law enforcement brutally attacked on January the 6th. We've seen election officials, poll workers, many of them volunteers of both parties, subject to intimidation and death threats. And can you believe it? FBI agents, just doing their job as directed, facing threats to their own lives from their own fellow citizens. On top of that, there are public figures today, yesterday, and the day before predicting and all but calling for mass violence and rioting in the streets. This is inflammatory. It's dangerous. It's against the rule of law. And we, the people, must say, this is not who we are. Ladies and gentlemen, we can't be pro-insurrectionist and pro-American. They're incompatible. We can't allow violence to be normalized in this country. It's wrong. We each have to reject political violence with all the moral clarity and conviction this nation can muster. Now, we can't let the integrity of our elections be undermined, for that is a path to chaos. Look, I know politics can be fierce and mean and nasty in America. I get it. I believe in the give and take of politics, in disagreement and debate and dissent. We're a big, complicated country. But democracy endures only if we, the people, respect the guardrails of the republic. Only if we, the people, accept the results of free and fair elections. Only if we, the people, see politics not as total war, but mediation of our differences. Democracy cannot survive when one side believes there are only two outcomes to an election. Either they win or they were cheated. And that's where the Maga Republicans are today. They don't understand what every patriotic American knows. You can't love your country only when you win. It's fundamental. American democracy only works only if we choose to respect the rule of law and the institutions that were set up in this chamber behind me. Only if we respect our legitimate political differences. I will not stand by and watch. I will not the will of the American people be overturned by wild conspiracy theories and baseless evidence-free claims of fraud. I will not stand by and watch elections in this country stolen by people who simply refuse to accept that they lost. I will not stand by and watch the most fundamental freedom in this country, the freedom to vote, and have your vote counted and be taken from you and the American people. Look, as your president, I will defend our democracy with every fiber of my being, and I'm asking every American to join me. Throughout our history, America's often made the greatest progress coming out of some of our darkest moments, like you're hearing that bullhorn. I believe we can and must do that again, and we are. MAGA Republicans look at America and see carnage and darkness and despair. They spread fear and lies. Lies told for profit and power. But I see a different America. An America with an unlimited future. An America that's about to take off. I hope you see it as well. Just look around. I believe we could lift America from the depths of COVID. So we passed the largest economic recovery package since Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And today, America's economy is faster, stronger than any other advanced nation in the world. We have more to go. I believe we could build a better America. So we passed the biggest infrastructure investment since President Dwight D. Eisenhower. And we've now embarked on a decade of rebuilding the nation's roads, bridges, highways, ports, water systems, high-speed internet, railroads. I believe we could make America safer, so we passed the most significant gun safety law since President Clinton. I believe we could go from being the highest cost of prescriptions in the world to making prescription drugs and healthcare more affordable. So we passed the most significant healthcare reform since President Obama signed the Affordable Care Act. And I believe we could create a clean energy future and save the planet. So we passed the most important climate initiative ever, ever, ever. The cynics and the critics tell us nothing can get done, but they're wrong. There is not a single thing America cannot do, not a single thing beyond our capacity if we do it together. It's never easy, but we're proving in America, no matter how long the road, progress does come. Look, I know the last few years have been tough, but today, COVID no longer controls our lives. More Americans are working than ever. Businesses are growing, our schools are open. Millions of Americans have been lifted out of poverty. Millions of veterans once exposed to toxic burn pits will now get what they deserve for their families and the compensation. American manufacturers come alive across the heartland, and the future will be made in America. No matter what the white supremacists and the extremists say, I made a bet on you, the American people, and that bet is paying off, proving that from darkness, the darkness of Charlottesville, of COVID, of gun violence, of insurrection, we can see the light. Light is now visible. Light that will guide us forward, not only in words, but in actions. Actions for you, for your children, for your grandchildren, for America. Even in this moment, with all the challenges we face, I give you my word as a Biden, I've never been more optimistic about America's future. Not because of me, but because of who you are. We're going to end cancer as we know it. Mark my words. We're going to create millions of new jobs in a clean energy economy. We're going to think big. We're going to make the 21st century another American century because the world needs us to. That's where we need to focus our energy. Not in the past, not on divisive culture wars, not on the politics of grievance, but on a future we can build together. The MAGA Republicans believe that for them to succeed, everyone else has to fail. They believe America not like I believe about America. I believe America is big enough for all of us to succeed. And that is the nation we're building, a nation where no one is left behind. I ran for president because I believe we're in a battle for the soul of this nation. I still believe that to be true. I believe the soul is the breath, the life, and the essence of who we are. The soul is what makes us, us. The soul of America is defined by the sacred proposition that all are created equal in the image of God, that all are entitled to be treated with decency, dignity, and respect, that all deserve justice and a shot at lives of prosperity and consequence, and that democracy must be defended, for democracy makes all these things possible. Folks, and it's up to us. Democracy begins and will be preserved in we, the people's habits of the heart, in our character, optimism that is tested yet endures, courage that digs deep when we need it, empathy that fuels democracy, the willingness to see each other not as enemies but as fellow Americans. Look, our democracy isn't perfect. It always has been. Notwithstanding those folks you hear on the other side there, they're entitled to be outrageous. This is a democracy. But history and common sense good manners is nothing they've ever suffered from. But history and common sense tell us that opportunity, liberty, and justice for all are most likely to come to pass in a democracy. We have never fully realized the aspirations of our founding, but every generation has opened those doors a little bit wider to include more people who have been excluded before. My fellow Americans, America is an idea, the most powerful idea in the history of the world, and it beats in the hearts of the people of this country. It beats in all our hearts. It unites America. It is the American creed, the idea that America guarantees that everyone be treated with dignity. It gives hate no safe harbor. It installs in everyone the belief that no matter where you start in life, there's nothing you can't achieve. That's who we are. That's what we stand for. That's what we believe. And that's precisely what we're doing. Opening doors, creating possibilities, focusing on the future. And we're only just beginning. Our task is to make our nation free and fair, just and strong, noble and whole. And this work is the work of democracy, the work of this generation. It is the work of our time, for all time. We can't afford to leave anyone on the sidelines. We need everyone to do their part. So speak up, speak out, get engaged, vote, vote, vote. And if we do our duty in 2022 and beyond, then ages still to come will say, we, all of us here, we kept the faith. We preserved democracy. We heeded our worst, we heeded not our worst instincts, but our better angels. We proved that for all its imperfections, America is still the beacon to the world, an ideal to be realized, a promise to be kept. There's nothing more important, nothing more sacred, nothing more American. That's our soul. That's who we truly are. And that's who we must always be. I have no doubt, none, that this is who we will be, and that we'll come together as a nation that will secure our democracy, that for the next 200 years, we'll have what we had the past 200 years, the greatest nation on the face of the earth. We just need to remember who we are. We are the United States of America, the United States of America. And may God protect our nation, and may God protect all those who stand watch over our democracy. God bless you all. Democracy. Thank you.
All right, that is President Joe Biden in front of Independence Hall in Philadelphia with 2 Marines behind him, an American flag, and his wife, Dr. Jill Biden there. giving him a kiss after the speech. A speech that was not really billed as a political speech by the White House, just that the president was going to talk about the soul of the nation, which he has talked about for years now, and how we are in a battle for the fight for the soul of the nation. And yet that speech sounded like a campaign speech. I mean, at the very end, he said, vote, vote, vote. He implored all Americans to join him in the fight to save democracy. You know, we heard some hecklers off in the distance, and he addressed it and said they're entitled to be outrageous. But there was no doubt this was a political speech. Let's go to Mary Bruce. She's back with us. Mary, is that what you expected? More than you expected? I mean, he went right at the former president and what he called MAGA Republicans.
Yeah, this is what we expected. I think the president is warning here in very stark terms what is at stake in this election. He is arguing that we are at a critical inflection point, saying that equality and democracy are under assault, arguing that our very democracy is what's on the ballot come November, going directly after those MAGA Republicans, saying they don't respect the will of the people, that they empower election deniers. At one point saying flatly, you cannot love your country only when you win. Now, the president, of course, is arguing that democracy is not guaranteed, that it's something that has to be defended, protected, stood up for. And yes, while he did not say his name very often, this was a speech that, you know, certainly centered around Donald Trump in many ways. It's interesting because midterms so often are a referendum on the current president. Biden is trying to make this a referendum in many ways on the former president. I think it's interesting to see the tone he took tonight. He's having to walk this fine line while trying to call out these dark forces that he described in our society, while also trying to be optimistic about the future. That's not an easy dance to do. And it did stick out to me what he didn't talk about as much. He didn't spend as much time talking about those kitchen table issues that are at the core of so many of the races across the country. You know, I was out here all day in the critical state of Pennsylvania talking to a lot of voters, and you know, one in particular stood out to me. He said, you know, yes, the battle for the soul of democracy, that's fine and good, but he wants to hear the president talk about the economy. He wants to hear the president talk about the rising prices he feels at the gas station and in the grocery store. So it will be interesting to see over the weeks to come whether we see more of the Joe Biden we saw tonight, speaking in these big sweeping terms, or whether we hear him talk more about those issues that are top of mind for voters when they head to cast their ballot in November.
Mary, the president drew a very clear line between Republicans and MAGA Republicans, as he said. He said he can work across the aisle. We've heard the president talk about this for years, that he can work across the aisle with anybody. But all right, it looks like Mary's signal is a bit troubled right now. But we'll try to bring Mary back in. I do want to bring in ABC political director Rick Klein. Rick, let's pick it up where we were talking with Mary. He drew a very clear line between Republicans and MAGA Republicans. He made a point to do that. You think it was powerful?
We saw President Biden tonight outline two main opponents in 2022, MAGA and Donald Trump. He made clear that his opponents aren't necessarily Republicans. I think you saw him essentially walk back what he said recently about Republican Party being a party of semi-fascists by saying that he doesn't believe that even a majority of Republicans are MAGA Republicans. But he used that word MAGA 13 times in this address. That was clearly on his mind, and he essentially conceded that MAGA Republicans have already made their choice. It was divisive language when it comes to singling them out. Some in his base, some in the country will say he had no choice to. He was right to do it, but he did make a choice. And he's also telling the American people that they have a choice. His message of vote, 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 specifically saying that MAGA Republicans are basically off the table. They are not people that can be reached with this messaging, I think was rather stark, very political, and I think a preview of what we're going to see where, as Mary pointed out, President Biden very willing, very eager to make this election a choice between Bidenism and Trumpism, between himself and the MAGA movement, a choice, in his view, of moving forward versus looking backward at old grievances.
Rick, the White House had argued that this was not a political speech. I think most of us knew going into it, it was going to be. He's the president. It's always political when he speaks. But he said you can't love your country only when you win. He said you can't be pro-insurrectionist and pro-American. He pulled no punches in this speech, and that was probably the point of it, yes?
No, well, Phil, I think a lot of people will ask, what's the point of a speech like this? I'd make two points on this. One is it's the Thursday before Labor Day weekend. This is when the campaign season gets underway. We all know that. The White House knows that. The president knows that. He is in the state, the battleground state of Pennsylvania, 3 times in a 6-day span. It is a critical state in Senate races. It has a very important gubernatorial contest that could determine control of the House. And I think this is a signal to Democrats across the country that, that Biden views himself as the right man for this moment. He viewed himself as the right man for this moment. The country agreed with him in 2020. The questions around him, his vigor, his commitment to the cause, he was as unequivocal as he's been that there's a portion of the country that cannot be reached on these issues, that is essentially gone, that has made the choice to follow one man, one leader, a leader whose name he mentioned twice in this speech, in Donald Trump, even making just veiled references to the news of the day, reminding people of the choice that they made 2 years ago, hoping that they would make it again.
Rick, stand by with us, if you will. I want to bring Mary Bruce back in, who's there. Mary, good to see you. You were there for the speech. The president, from the get-go, had a very strong tone. You know, we saw the president point his finger as he does in speeches like this. Rick points out that he only mentioned the former president's name a couple of times, but as Rick counted, and I thought it was roughly around a dozen, 13 times he mentioned MAGA Republicans.
Yeah, he doesn't have to say Donald Trump's name for it to be very clear that this was a speech about Donald Trump. And as Rick points out, he is trying to cast this upcoming election really as a choice between the Democrats and the vision that Biden is offering, and what Biden argues is going backwards to what he described as the extreme ideology of those Republicans who are beholden to the former president. That is the stark division that Biden is trying to paint here. And it is a little tricky for him, though. Of course, Biden ran as being a great uniter, someone who could bring this country together after the tumultuous Trump years. And for him now, this far into his presidency, to really be taking this more forceful tone, and it is a real shift in tone for this president. It is a fine line that he has to walk. And yes, you know, as Rick pointed out, he did, of course, note that not all Republicans are MAGA Republicans, that there are many moderate Republicans. Biden says those are the ones that he's been trying to work with. And Biden's saying, look, he is the president of all Americans, but also noting, of course, that the stark divisions in this country, and I don't know if you could hear it coming through the president's camera, but there were some protesters here tonight. We could hear them screaming and chanting through some bullhorn just a block away here. So those divisions still very much on full display. And of course, we saw that today when Republicans, the Republican leader of the House, Kevin McCarthy, came here to Pennsylvania to give a prebuttal to the president's speech, to try and get ahead of it. Blaming the president for the state of the economy, because while Joe Biden and Democrats want to make this about Donald Trump, Republicans are trying to make this about the issues and trying to get past, in many ways, the former president and much of the legal drama that he is currently ensnared in. So.
All right, Mary, thank you. For more, let's bring in ABC News political contributor and former Trump administration official Sarah Isgur, and ABC News contributor and 2016 Clinton campaign veteran Amanda Renteria. Thank you both for joining us. Amanda, let me begin with you. How effective, first, do you think the president's speech was tonight? And is this a message that resonates with voters right now?
You know, he's in Pennsylvania in front of Independence Hall. There's a clarity around what's at stake. And there's no doubt that not only has the polling suggested that people are worried about a threat to democracy, but what you hear and what you see is a president who does what he's done best for his entire career. Talk about the importance of this democracy, talk about the United States as a beacon of hope in the standing of the world. And right now that is ever present in people's mind, not only again in polls, but as what we're seeing about the threat with the former president, the raids that are going on. And what he does best at these moments is actually provide assurance and certainty and leadership that we as a country, you won't bet against us, that we are in a good place. And he's had a pretty good laundry list of things that have happened in the last several weeks to show that we can actually make progress, even when it doesn't always feel like it. And so I think tonight was a night of what President Biden does best, right in front of Independence Hall, reminding us of what is at stake right now for democracy and in this midterm election as well.
Yeah, and the president's approval rating over the last few weeks has reflected that somewhat, some of the gains that he has had with the passage of bills. But Sarah, let me ask you, because as Rick points out, the president only mentioned the former president's name a couple of times, but he went right after MAGA Republicans, dark forces, trying to take over democracy. What did you think about the president's message tonight, and how do you think it's going to land?
Well, you mentioned his approval ratings have been ticking up. It's been ticking up because of Democrats coming back to the president. And I think that's squarely who this speech was for as they head into what is the crux of the midterm elections. But stepping back, it was very hard to take large parts, the whole focus of this speech seriously when the Democratic campaign committees have spent millions to try to prop up those very MAGA Republicans they say are such a threat to defeat the moderate Republicans that Joe Biden was trying to praise. To say that this is about the soul of the nation, then why is your party, the money that you're helping raise for that party, going to help those very candidates? Of course, he's not talking about that tonight because that's not who this speech was for. As I said, this was to bring Democrats back home, consolidate that vote heading into the fall. And I'll just note, you said a national park he spoke at with Marines in the background. This was a deeply political speech, something that President Trump was also criticized for doing the very same thing during his presidency.
Yeah, we noticed that when he walked out with the Marines, and of course the White House says it wasn't going to be political, but we knew sort of the content, and that's exactly where it headed. Amanda, we know Democrats are running against election deniers in many parts of the country very openly. How much should Democratic candidates be leaning into this message about the threat to democracy in the final weeks in the midterms? Some Democratic candidates not wanting to stand with the vice president. How much should they lean into this?
Listen, I think it's important to talk about what's really at stake in terms of the threat of democracy, but you're in a midterm election and everything is, all politics is local because you don't have the top of the ticket. And so you will see fantastic candidates around the country talking about what's happening in their state, what kinds of issues they're facing, and how their leadership is not extreme, but their leadership is actually willing to work across the aisle to get things done. And it does help that the Democratic Party was able to get some things done as we go into this final couple of days, because it shows what does it mean to have Democratic leadership to really move the country forward.
And Sarah, we heard many Republicans speak out against the search at Mar-a-Lago when the news first came out, but there's been sort of less defense of the former president as more details continue to emerge. How much of a liability could this cloud for the former president be for Republicans this coming fall?
Well, undoubtedly, when the focus is on Donald Trump, it helps the Democratic Party. The Democrats know that, and the Republicans seem to be figuring that out as well. You have leaders within that sort of populist wing of the Republican Party saying now that it might be time to move on from President Trump. He is simply too much of a distraction. And you have members of President Trump's own team saying that he may put off his announcement to run for president, something that was expected even in the coming days and weeks before the midterm elections. Republicans up and down the ticket saying, please no, see how this is hurting us already just with the focus on Mar-a-Lago up to now.
All right, Sarah Isger, Amanda Renteria, thank you both for spending some time with us after the president's speech. We appreciate both of your perspectives. Let's bring Rick Klein back in right now. Rick, final thoughts on the president's message tonight. Ultimately, do you think this speech gives him and the Democrats momentum heading into the midterms? Bottom line, do you think it moves the needle at all?
One thing that's often said in politics is that you have to know what you're running for and who you're running against. To me, this was as clear and concise a distillation of both of those themes that we've heard from President Biden. It's a banner that most, if not all, Democrats can get behind, and a reminder to the American people and to the Democratic base that Donald Trump has been beaten before. He lost the 2018 midterms. The House flipped under his watch. In 2020, he lost both the Senate, and he did lose the presidency as well. Joe Biden was the leader of the ticket at that time. This is Joe Biden squaring up once again against Donald Trump. The matchup in 2024, Biden versus Trump, may or may not happen, but for 2022, it is very clearly on.
No doubt it is going to be a busy few years. Rick Klein, thanks so much.
Thank you, Bill.
That's our show for tonight. We'll be back at the top of the hour with more news and analysis. For now, I'm Phil Lipoff. Thanks for streaming with us.
This is ABC News Live.
To crush a family.